Hey guys, welcome back to this video series called Migration. As a part of this playlist, we have looked at how to retrieve the metadata from Salesforce. In this video, we'll be looking at how to deploy the metadata that we have retrieved from one sandbox into another sandbox. Our goal of this video is, from org1, we have downloaded an object called Singer object. We have the metadata of this object in our local machine in the form of XML. So what we want to do now is we wanted to create that object in the org2. In this org2, we do not have the Singer object. As a part of this migration process, we want to create that object. You can think of this org1 as your dev sandbox and org2 as a QA sandbox or a UAT sandbox where you wanted this object to be created. We are taking example of a Singer object. This process applies to any components metadata like we have discussed in our previous class. So we are taking this Singer as an example to understand this process. So our goal is to basically see the Singer object in this org2 without manually creating that object. So without any delay, let's get started. Let's understand the deployment this time with the help of the same example that we have discussed previously. Let's understand this deployment with the help of the simple example that we have used in our previous exercise with the help of an analogy. So remember this store where in which we have asked for the toothpaste, toothbrush, and the deodorant. This time, this store is not only providing the items to the customers, but also it is distributing those items to the nearby shops also. This store is acting like a wholesale store. So what would happen in a wholesale store? Wholesale store basically has items priced at a lower price. Small scale business people would buy the items from this wholesale store and they would be listing them. They would be selling those items at a little profit margin to the customers. Right? So let's not get into the details of how exactly this chain operates. So what exactly we are looking out in this example is we have certain items in the wholesale store where these items are being moved from the wholesale store to the general store, wholesale store to the general store. Right? If you understand this process of what exactly we are doing here, you would be able to understand the process of the deployment also. So what is happening in short here is the items from this shop are kind of moved to another general store. Let's say this general store owner wants to purchase few items from this wholesale store. What he or she would be again doing, they'll be preparing the list of items that they would need. So if the general store owner wants certain set of items, what they will do, they'll reach out to this wholesale store, place their order, and their order would be delivered. For this owner to basically help the wholesale owner understand what they need, again, they would be preparing a shopping list. So this shopping list would basically have the items this owner needs. This request would be forwarded to the store owner either via phone or via physical visit. Once the list has been shared with this wholesale owner, what they would do, they would basically pack things and give it to the customer. This is something that we have already talked about, which is nothing but retrieve, right? So this resembles the process of retrieve that we have discussed. What should this shop owner of this general store should do? He or she has to get that content from there and they have to arrange it in their own shop. So this process of taking that items from that store and arranging them in their general store is nothing but your deploy. The items that are being taken from the store are being deployed to this general store. So if you have understood this example, it is pretty much easy to understand your deploy also. So whatever that we have discussed in your retrieve, the opposite of that is your deploy. So if you remember our previous retrieve model, process of retrieve from an org, we are kind of downloading the changes into a zip file. Once you have a zip file, what you can do, you can basically make use of this local zip file and you can do the opposite of what we have done. and you can end up creating that metadata that you have extracted in a zip file in an org2. That is what we are focusing right now, which is nothing but deploy. So the deploy is a reverse of what we have discussed in our retrieve model. So once you have a zip file, you will be uploading it. You can think of your deploy as an upload option. You can decide to which org you wanted to deploy these changes. Once you have the metadata, do the opposite of what we have done in your retrieve. That is where the latest changes would be appearing in your org. So that is what we'll do. Remember, we have a Singer object zip file from our previous discussion. I'll be making use of that Singer object zip file to create a new object, create a Singer object in a second org. So this is my org1. This is my org1, which goes by the name RSP Cloud Labs. So this is my org1 where I have my Singer object. This is what I have extracted, or this is what I've downloaded, or this object metadata is what I've downloaded into my local machine using my retrieve option. So now what I would be doing is I want these changes to be migrated into my org2, which is nothing but org24. If you see here, I've named this org in a way that it is easier for us to identify that we are moving the changes into org2. So this org2 doesn't have any Singer object yet. How can I prove that? If I go to my object manager and search for Singer object, I do not have any object here. So if my deployment process goes fine, I should be able to see the Singer object here. That is the final test that we can do to confirm our results of our deployment that we have done. Right? So this is the end result that we are trying to achieve. In my org2, I want this Singer object to be created. You can think of this org1 and org2 as two sandboxes. It could be two production orgs, or it could be one sandbox or one production org. Whatever the orgs might be, the process remains same. All you need to do is you need to just make sure that you are connected to the right org to make those changes. So now I want the changes to be deployed into my org2. So what I would do, I'll be logging into my Workbench again, the same link that we have used previously. I'll select the option as production, API version, I'll keep it as 52 to make sure that the things are consistent across the package and the extract that you have received. I've selected it as 52, and once done, click on login. Once you log in into the Workbench, earlier we have used the retrieve option to retrieve the changes or deploy or download the changes from that org. So this time I wanted to deploy. So I'll select this deploy option. In order to understand to which org you are connected, hover on this link and you can double check this information to which org you are connected. Make sure that you are connected to the right org. So I wanted the Singer object changes to be deployed into the org. So I have provided the org2 credentials into my Workbench. So that way I'll be deploying it to the changes. So it is like once I have the parcel from the wholesale store, I'll be arranging the items that I've received from the wholesale store within the general store. So it is like I'll be doing the process of arranging things in my general store. So make sure that you understand that point and connect to the right org, so that way you do not mess up deploying the changes into another unwanted org or into an unwanted org. Now, once you click on this deploy option, it would be asking you to choose a zip file. Choose a zip file to deploy and any applicable options. So if you see here, this is the place where you would be providing your zip file, and there are like a couple of options that you can select from. So I'll go ahead and select the zip file that I've extracted previously. I've selected my zip file here. Now, if you see, there are like a couple of options that you can select based on what exactly you're trying to do with this deployment. So let's say I do not want to deploy my changes directly into this org2, but rather I wanted to validate my package. So what is this validation? So let's say the migration process of moving the changes from one org to another org would be scheduled on a weekend. If it is to production, org, it would be scheduled in a way that there are lesser number of people using this production org. If you ask us why, it is to make sure that the customers or the people who are using this org would have very much less impact on the changes that are happening. So let's say there is a change in a functionality. The customer is using that functionality. If there is a deployment that happened and now all of a sudden there is a change in the behavior of that particular component or a process. So then it would be something difficult for the user to kind of get away with it because he's dealing with the real-time data. So that is where any changes to the production would happen on weekends, right? So if it is happening on the weekends, the timeline for making these changes to the production would be less, right? So it has to happen within those 2 days, let's say Saturday and Sunday. In addition to this deployment, there would be smoke testing and things like that. Do let us know in the comment section if you want us to make a separate video on the process of what exactly happens once the changes moves into the production and the process of what would happen on a production day. We'll be creating a video for it. Now, the timelines for this production are very tight because once the production deployment is done, the developers needs to verify their components and the QA team needs to do a smoke test. So the timelines are tight. So what is recommended is before the day of production deployment, there would be a validation that would happen. So what is this validation? Validation is nothing but making sure that whatever the zip file that you have uploaded is correct and the components that are there inside it is not having any issues. The metadata that we are added into this zip file is proper. And if there are any changes to it, if it is causing an issue on the production day, it would kind of kill the timelines that are already set up in place for those days. So that is where there is a pre-step that you can do, which is like check if the package that we have uploaded is good or bad. If the package that we have uploaded is having some issues or errors, since we are not doing this validation on Saturday or Sunday, we would still have some time to make those changes and make sure that the package is good. So that way you do not alter the timelines that are established for the production, right? So this validation basically comes into picture. If you wanted to make sure that everything should go smooth, you would make a validate or check only option. So check only option, if you check this checkbox, it would not deploy the changes, but it would validate them. So it is like checking if everything is fine or not. If there is any errors, the Salesforce would basically let us know what those errors are and we can correct them accordingly. If you want to only check but not deploy, that is where you will check this checkbox. So the components would not be directly deployed, but it would be just validated. It would be checked, but it would not be allowed into the org. If you do not want that, if you want the changes to be deployed, you can keep this checkbox unchecked. So if you have any test classes that you wanted to run, you can basically select those options here. Since we are deploying a simple object, these test classes are not needed. So for this exercise, I'm skipping them. Once done, click on next. So if you see here, it basically talks about what are the options that we have seen and what are the settings that we have selected here. Right? It says successfully staged 2 KB zip file. This the file name that I have given for the deployment. So it comes up with a warning saying that warning, this deployment will make a permanent change to this organization's metadata and cannot be rolled back. So that means once you make the changes to this org, you cannot kind of ask the system to roll it back. Use the check only option to validate this deployment without making any changes. So that is what we have discussed. In case if you just want to validate without making the changes to the org, you can simply keep this checkbox true. So that way the system would not deploy those changes, but it would check and let us know if there are any errors. If you think everything is good, you can click on this deploy button. Now, once you click on the deploy button, where can you check the status of the deployment? There should be a page or a place where you can check what is the status of your deployment. So that is where what you can do is you can go to the org, go to the setup, search for deployment, and click on deployment status. Click on deployment status, and this is the page that you will come across. If you see, as of now, I do not have anything happening here. So that is why this fail and success seems to be showing no records. So let's go ahead and click on this deploy and see what would happen. I'll click on deploy, go back to this page and refresh it. If you see here, there is a deployment failure that has happened. So if you see here, the deployment is successful now. And if I go back to the workbench, and you can see the same thing here. So you can see the list of things that are deployed, and we have deployed a single object. And if there are any errors, you will be seeing the errors here. So now what I have done wantedly is to show you the difference. I have failed it twice just to show you how exactly the deployments would look like. And this is the success one. So if you see here, if I click on view details for the success one, you'll get to know the things that are being deployed. So you can see there are like 5 components that are being deployed and the deployment is successful. If I go to any error deployment, you will get to know the deployment that is happening. So this is the common error that you might come across, which is basically says no package.xml found. So in case if you are facing this error, all you need to do is make sure that you are following the structure, the folder structure that I have in my. So if you see here, this is my object folder. Inside this object folder, I'll have a single object metadata, and here is my package.xml. So if you directly zip these 2 files, that is where you will see that error which says no package.xml found. So why you get that error is the system is basically searching for your package.xml in this folder. Since that is not found, it is giving us this error. Now how to fix that error? So fixing that error is very simple. All you need to do is put the items that you wanted to deploy into another folder. Let's say I'll call it as new folder for time being, or you can call it as any folder. So put these items into that new folder and then zip, or you can compress that folder or create a zip file out of it. This is how the structure would be. Under the new folder, I have this objects and I have this package.xml. So if you directly zip this here, that is where you will get that no package.xml error. So instead of doing it, put these items into a new folder and then zip that folder, so that way you do not end up seeing that error that I was facing. Now let's go back to it's the time where we need to check in our org2, do we have the Singer object or not? So I search for Singer. At the start of the video, we do not have any Singer object in org2. Now we have the Singer object created. So this is a indication that yes, we have migrated this Singer object from this particular org, which is RSP Cloud Labs. From this org, we have migrated to this org2 without manually creating that object. We are able to do it with the help of code migration and metadata. So let's compare these 2 orgs. So I'll quickly compare the fields that I have. So if you see here, I have bio, TOB, Instagram, owner, and singer name. If I go ahead and open this fields in my this org, so it also basically gives us so this object also basically has the same fields: bio, TOB, Instagram, owner, and this is how you can make those changes. So if I open any field here, it basically talks when it has been created. It has been created on 29/3/2022. This is the date where I've created this video. So this is how you can basically check if the object has been migrated or not. So along with the object, we have also migrated the fields, which is part of our metadata. So this is how you can make use of your code migration deploy option to move your changes from one org to another org. And that brings us to the end of this video, which is, as a summary, you can make use of the deploy to basically deploy or upload the local repository of the metadata that you have into the orgs. So that is how you can make use of your code migration to move your changes from one org to another org without the effort of recreating them again and again in the orgs that you need. Once the metadata is there, you can basically replicate the changes into the other org with very minimal effort. So that brings us to the end of this video. Hope you have enjoyed it. If you have liked this video, do like, share, and subscribe to SFDC Quest. In case if you have any requests on the concepts that you wanted us to make a video on, do let us know in the comment section and we'll surely come up with that series. Notes and the links that are being used in this video would be pasted in the description box. Feel free to check out that and let us know if you have any questions in the comment section. Till the time we come up with a new video, happy Salesforce learning.
Hey guys, if you like this video, do like, share and subscribe to SFDC Quest.